Welcome, friends. I'm here with Rabbi Eddie. I am Minister Chad. The last time we left off was in Genesis, at the end of Genesis 11, and we were reading the Holy Bible, which is, the original James version, King James version, not new, just the old. So this is the difference between the way this is going to read and the way the Living Bible reads. Listen to this. By the time Terah was 70 years old, he had three sons: Abram, Nahor, and Haran. And Haran had a son named Lot. But Haran died young in the land where he was born, in Ur of the Chaldeans, and he was survived by his father. Meanwhile, Abram married his half-sister Sarah, while his brother Nahor married their orphan niece Milcah, who was the daughter of the brother Haran, and she had a brother named Iscah. But Sarah was barren, she had no children. Then Terah took his son Abram, his grandson Lot, and his daughter-in-law Sarah, and left Ur of the Chaldeans to go to the land of Canaan. But they stopped instead at the city of Haran and settled there. And there Terah died at the age of 205. After the death of Abram's father, God told him, "Leave your own country behind you and your own people, and go to the land I will guide you to. If you do, I will cause you to become the father of a great nation. I will bless you and make your name famous, and you will be a blessing to many others. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you, and the entire world will be blessed because of you." So Abram departed as the Lord had instructed him, and Lot went to. Abram was 75 years old at that time. He took his wife Sarah, his new nephew Lot, and all his wealth, the cattle and the slaves he had gotten in Haran, and finally arrived in Canaan. Traveling through Canaan, they came to a place near Shechem and set up camp beside the oak at Morah. This area was inhabited by the Canaanites at that time. Then Jehovah appeared to Abram, and said, "I am going to give this land to your descendants." And Abram built an altar there to commemorate Jehovah's visit. Afterwards, Abram left that place and traveled southward to the hilly country between Bethel on the west and the A on the east. There he made camp and made an altar to the Lord and prayed to him. Thus he continued slowly southward to Negeb, pausing frequently. There was at that time a terrible famine in the land, and so Abram went on down to Egypt to live. But as he was approaching the borders of Egypt, he asked Sarai, his wife, to tell everyone that she was his sister, which it was his half-sister. So that's right. "You are beautiful," he told her, "and when the Egyptians see you, they will say, 'This is his wife. Let's kill him, and then we can have her.' But if you say, 'You are my sister,' then the Egyptians will treat me well because of you and spare my life." And sure enough, when they arrived in Egypt, everyone spoke of her beauty. When the palace aides saw her, they praised her to their king, the Pharaoh, and she was taken into his harem. For the Pharaoh gave Abram many gifts because of her: sheep, oxen, donkey, men and women, slaves, and camels. But the Lord sent a terrible plague upon Pharaoh's household on account of her being there. Then Pharaoh called Abram before him and accused him sharply. What is this you have done to me? He demanded. Why didn't you tell me she was your wife? Why were you willing to let me marry her, saying she was your sister? Here, take her and be gone. And Pharaoh sent them out of the country under armed escort, Abram, his wife, and all his household possessions. So they left Egypt, traveled into Negeb, Abram with his wife and Lot, and all they owned, for Abram was very rich in livestock, silver, and gold. Then they continued northward toward Bethel, where he had camped before between Bethel and Ai, to the place where he had built the altar, and there he again worshipped the Lord. Lot too was very wealthy, with sheep and cattle and many servants, but the land could not support both Abram and Lot, with all their flocks and herds. There were too many animals for the available pasture, so fights broke out between the herdsmen of Lot and Abram, despite the danger they all faced from the tribes of the Canaanites and the Perizzites present in the land. Then Abram talked it over with Lot. This fighting between our men has got to stop. He said, we cannot afford to let a rift develop between our clans. Close relatives such as we are must present a united front. I'll tell you what we'll do. Take your choice of any section of the land you want, and we will separate. If you want that part over there to the east, then I'll stay here in the western section, or if you want the west, then I'll go over there to the east. Lot took a long look at the fertile plains of the Jordan River, well watered everywhere. This was before Jehovah destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. The whole section was like the Garden of Eden, or like the beautiful countryside around Seir in Egypt. So that is what Lot chose, the Jordan Valley, to the east of them. He went there with his flocks and servants, and thus he and Abram parted company. For Abram stayed in the land of Canaan, while Lot lived among the cities of the plain, settling at a place near the city of Sodom. The men of this area were unusually wicked and sinned greatly against Jehovah. After Lot was gone, the Lord said to Abram, look as far as you can see in every direction, for I am going to give it all to you and your descendants. And I am going to give you so many descendants that, like dust, they can't be counted. Hike in all directions and explore the new possessions I'm giving you. Then Abraham moved his tent to the oaks of Mamre near Hebron and built an altar to Jehovah there. Now war filled the land. Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elasar, Kedo, Laomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of Goim, fought against Bera, king of Sodom, Bersha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, Shember, king of Zeboim, and the king of Belar, later called Zeor. These kings of Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboim, and Bela mobilized their armies in Siddim Valley, that is the valley of the Salt Sea. For 12 years they had been subject to King Chedorlaomer, but now in the 13th year they rebelled. 1 year later, Chedorlaomer and his allies arrived and the slaughter began, for they were victorious over the following tribes at the places indicated. Okay. Genesis 14 of the Living Bible. And I just read the beginning of 14. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go over here to the Holy Bible. We're going to go to Genesis 14. Okay, so what it said here. At the beginning of 14, in the Living Bible, it says, "Now war filled the land. Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elasar, Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of Goim." And over here it says, "And it came to pass in the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Eleazar, Chedorlaomer, king of Eliam, and Tidal, king of nations, that these made war with Bera, king of Sodom." And here we go. Fought against Bera, king of Sodom, and with Bersha, king of Gomorrah, and Shinab, king of Admah. Okay. All these were joined together in the valley of Siddim. Okay. And it says 1 year later here, it says in the 14th year came Chedorlaomer and the kings that were with him and smote the Rephaims, and Ashtaroth, Karnaim, and Zuzims, and Ham, and Emans, and Sheba, Kirithaim. Okay. Then they swung around in Mishaphat, later called Kadesh, and destroyed the Amalekites and also the Amorites living in Hazon Tamar. And they returned and came to En Mishpat, which is Kadesh, and smote all the country of the Amalekites and also the Amorites, and dwell in the Hazon Tamar. Okay, now we're going to go to the Jehovah Witness Bible. This is the one that I read front to back, the whole thing. I want to read the others too, but I'm trying to compare everything here. So this is 14. Now in the days of Amraphel, the king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Eleazar, Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, all these joined forces at the valley of Siddim. So, this, here we go. This is the original. Okay. And then you have the Living Bible. This one is sticks to it everything, but it's shorter. You can blow right through that. Over here is easier to read than this, but it's still longer. And then say you want to whip out the new King James version. We go to Genesis. Genesis 14. How close is it to the original text? Because this, the original, just the King James version, it's a little rough in the beginning, but towards the end and in the back, it reads, it's pretty smooth. I mean, it's not that bad. So it's like, I know that it's still, you know, hard, but I mean not hard for a normal reader, I guess. And it came to pass. Okay, so when it came to pass in the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar, huh, that they made war with Bera, king of Sodom, Brisha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah. Okay, so the New King James is really close to the older one. So we're gonna go right on through. So we're gonna start at Genesis 14:8. Say 7, because that's where we left off. Then they swung around in Mishaphat, later called Kadesh, and destroyed the Amalekites and also the Amorites living in Hazon Tamar. But now the other army, that of the kings of Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboim, Bela, unsuccessfully attacked the Kedorlaomer with and his allies as they were in the Salt Sea Valley, 4 kings against 5. As it happened, the valley was full of asphalt pits. And as the army of the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled. So, the Living Bible comes through as it's more of visualization, because they don't really talk about the asphalt, but I know it was there, and they don't talk about it over here. But in here, they give you more of a text, so you can put all this together, and it's more explainable like this. I didn't know that Abraham was married his half sister. Some slipped into the pits, and the remainder fled to the mountains. Then the victors plundered Sodom and Gomorrah and carried off all their wealth and food and went on their homeward way. Talking with them, Lot, Abraham's nephew, who lived in Sodom, and all he owned. One of the men who escaped came and told Abram, the Hebrew, who was camping among the oaks belonging to Mamre the Amorite, brother of Eshcol and Aner, Abram's allies. When Abram learned that Lot had been captured, he called together the men born into his household, 318. All right, I'm going to go back here. Let's go back to Genesis 11:29 in the original text. Genesis 11:29. Okay. 11:29. And Abram and Nahor took them wives. The name of Abram's wife was Sarah, and the name of Nahor's wife Milcah, and daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah, and the father of Iscah. But Sarah was barren. Okay, so in the King James Version, it doesn't say anything about Abram marrying his half-sister. Okay, so the Living Bible is supposed to be like, I mean, how do they know? If they don't say that in here, how are they going to say that in here? I don't know. We're going to go here to, okay, now the Living Bible is before the New King James. So, before Genesis 11. Okay, so Abram and Nahor took wives for themselves. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife was Milcah, the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah and Iscah. Now Sarah was barren; she had no child. Terah took Abram and his son and Lot his grandson, the son of Haran, and Sarah. Okay, so this is close to the whole. These two are the closest right here. Okay, and then you go to New King James. New King James 11:29. Then Abram and Nahor took wives. The name of Abram's wife was Sarah, and the name of Nahor's wife was Milcah, the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah and the father of Iscah. But Sarah was barren; she had no child. Okay, so the New King James Version is as close as you can get to the Holy Bible, but they're doing away with a lot of thous and jests and superlatives and things like that. But so we're gonna have this takes longer to read because, well, in the beginning it does, but once you get going, once you start clearing through the first third, it'll start smoothing out. But just since I've already read most of Genesis from this and some of Genesis from this, and we know that this is really close here. But let me go on and show you what this little baby is here, because I read this in 5.5 months. I mean, my hours were different every day, but I mean, there were some days that I read for like 8 or 9 hours. But it was, I just like flew right through like butter. Just like butter. And it's so much fun. There's so much fun in here. That's why I'm gonna, my biggest thing is right now is I want to put everything down. I'm going through it, reading the whole thing again, and I put down things that I want to put down, so then I can do like an overview, like a book report, like an outline for just one of my sermons. Or it might end up being probably more than one. So we left off at. Okay, so after that a man who had escaped came and told Abram the Hebrew. He was then dwelling among the big trees of Mamre the Amorite. We left off at 14. So at this point, okay, so 14:8. At this point, the king of Sodom went on the march, and also the king of Gomorrah, the king of Admah, the king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, that is Zoar, and they drew up in battle formation against them in the valley of Siddim. Okay, we know that. They also took Lot, and then the victors took all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their food and went on their way. They also took Lot, the son of Abram's brother, who was dwelling in Sodom, as well as his goods, and they continued on their way. So there is, like I've noticed that in this Living Bible, they just start breaking out evil right away. They like say it and all this stuff. But in here, they don't really talk. They don't really talk about, you know, heaven and hell and stuff like that. And it's not like what something that you would think. It's not, this is what it is you go from Genesis, you roll into, Moses, and then you got the 40 years of all the fighting and all that stuff trying to get to the promised land. And then once they're there, and you go on and on and on, and then they wanted a king. God said no. They said yes. He said no. And then finally, God gave in and started giving them kings. So you just start going through each king all the way down. It's awesome. It's so, oh my gosh, it's so much. So I'm just wait. I just can't really wait to get back into the thick of it. I want to get through Genesis again and down into Exodus and through Deuteronomy and Numbers and all that stuff. And once you get one, then you're gonna. It starts kind of right away. It doesn't start. Well, what I'm talking about, there's a thing that's gonna start and it's gonna happen. What it's gonna be is it's gonna be like names and numbers and names and numbers and names and numbers. Da, 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 da. You just gotta hammer it out. You gotta read every single one, every single name, every single number, every single tribe, every single all, and it's just gonna throw them at you. And then eventually it'll stop, and then it'll do it again later on. And what it does is it tells you a bunch of new stuff, and then it'll bring back to reiterate some of the old stuff so you don't forget, and then a bunch of more new stuff, and then I'll throw back so you don't forget this all the way through. Took some brilliant minds to put this together, and the way they put it together, some of the greatest scholars of the time put this together. After that, after that man who escaped came and told Abram the Hebrew, he was then dwelling among the big trees of the Mamre and the Amorite, the brother of Eshcol and Aner. These men were allies of Abram. Thus Abram heard that his relative had been taken captive. With that, he mobilized his trained men, 318 servants born in his household, and went in pursuit up to Dan during the night. Now, this is the first time it talks about one of the tribes is Dan. So it's the first time Dan gets mentioned here. During the night, he divided his forces, and then he and his servants attacked and defeated them, and he pursued them up to Hobah, which is north of Damascus. He recovered all the goods, and he also recovered Lot, his relative, his goods, the women, and the other people. After Abram returned from defeating Chedorlaomer and the kings who were with him, the king of Sodom went out to meet Abram at the valley of Shaveh, that is, the valley of the king. And Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was priest of the Most High God. Then he blessed him and said, Blessed be Abram by the Most High God, maker of heaven and earth, and praised be the Most High God who has handed our oppressors over to you. And Abram gave him a tenth of everything. After that, the king of Sodom said to Abram, Give me the people, but take the goods for yourself. But Abram said to the king of Sodom, I raise my hand in an oath to Jehovah, that Most High God, maker of heaven and earth, that I will not take anything that is yours from a thread to a sandal lace, so that you may not say, I made Abram rich. I will take nothing except what the young men have already eaten. As for the share of men who went with me, Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre, let them take their share. After this, the word of Jehovah came to Abram in a vision, saying, Do not fear, Abram. I am a shield for you. Your reward will be very great. Abram replied, Sovereign Lord Jehovah, that what will you give me, seeing that I continue childless, and the one who will inherit my house is a man of Damascus, Eliezer? Abram added, You have given me no offspring, and a member of my household is succeeding me as heir. But look, Jehovah's word in reply to him was, This man will not succeed you as heir, but your own son will succeed as your heir. He brought him outside and said, "Look up, please, to the heavens and count the stars, if you are able to do so." Then he said to him, "So your offspring will become, and he will put faith in Jehovah, and he counted it to him as righteousness." Then he added, "I am Jehovah who brought you out of Ur of the Chaldeans to give you this land as your possession." To this he said, "Sovereign Lord Jehovah, how will I know that I will take possession of it?" He replied, "Now take me for a 3-year-old heifer, a 3-year-old female goat, and a 3-year-old ram, a turtle dove, and a young pigeon." So he took all these and cut them in two and put each part opposite the other, but he did not cut up the birds. Then the birds of the prey began to ascend on the carcasses, but Abram kept driving them away. When the sun was about to set, a deep sleep fell upon Abram, and a great and frightening darkness descended on him. Then he said to Abram, "Know for certain that your offspring will be foreigners in a land not theirs, and that the people there will enslave them and afflict them for 400 years, but I will judge the nation they will serve, and after that they will go out with many goods. As for you, you will go to your forefathers in peace, and you will be buried at a good old age. But they will return here in the 4th generation, because of the error Amorites has not reached its full measure." When the sun had set and it became very dark, a smoking furnace appeared, and a fiery torch passed between the pieces. On that day Jehovah made with Abram a covenant, saying, "To your offspring I will give this land, from the river of Egypt to the great river, the river Euphrates, and the land of the Canaanites and the Kenizzites, the Kedemonites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Rephaim, and the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Girgashites, and the Jebusites." Now Abram's wife Sarah had borne him no children, but she had an Egyptian servant whose name was Hagar. So Sarah said to Abram, "Please, now Jehovah has prevented me from bearing children. Please have relations with my servant. Perhaps I can have children by means of her." So Abram listened to what Sarah said. Abram had lived for 10 years in the land of Canaan. Abram's wife Sarah took her Egyptian servant Hagar and gave her to her husband Abram as his wife. So he had relations with Hagar, and she became pregnant. When she realized that she was pregnant, she began to despise her mistress. At this, Sarah said to Abram, "The injury done to me is your fault. I was the one who put my servant in your arms." But when she realized that she was pregnant, she began to despise me. "May Jehovah judge between me and you." So Abram said to Sarah, "Look, your servant is under your authority. Do to her whatever you think is best." Then Sarah humiliated her, and she ran away from her. Later, Jehovah's angel found her at the spring of waters in the wilderness, in the spring on the way to Shur. And he said, "Hagar, servant of Sarah, where have you come from, and where are you going?" To this she said, "I am running away from my mistress Sarah." Jehovah's angel then said to her, "Return to your mistress and humble yourself under your hand." Then Jehovah said, "I will greatly multiply your offspring, so that they will be too numerous to count." Jehovah's angel added, Here you are pregnant, and you will give birth to a son, and you must name him Ishmael, for Jehovah has heard your affliction. He will be a wild donkey of a man. His hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand will be against him, and he will dwell opposite all his brothers. Then she called on the name of Jehovah. Get away!
son. And Abram named his son, whom Hagar bore Ishmael. Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bore Ishmael to him. See, I mean, even the second time around, I figured that once I read this entire thing, the second time around, I'd be able to just. Nope. Still get you, boy. When Abram was 99 years old, Jehovah appeared to Abram and said to him, I am God Almighty. Walk before me and prove yourself faultless. I will establish my covenant between me and you, and I will multiply you very, very much. At this, Abram fell face down. And God continued to speak with him, saying, As for me, look, my covenant is with you, and you will certainly become a father of many nations. Your name will no longer be Abram. Your name will now become Abraham. Genesis 17:5. Your name will no longer be Abram. Your name will become Abraham. For I will make you a father of many nations. I will make you very, very fruitful, and will make you become nations, and kings will come from you. So you don't forget now. So when Abraham went to go save his nephew, he went into battle. 318 people went in and took them all out. Got Lot back and all that. And then the other kings were all tripped. They were happy to see it. They were like, dang, he was like, man, that was awesome. Let's have a beer. You're part of us now. You went in and took them out, blah, blah. God said further to Abraham, as for you, you are to keep my covenant. You and your offspring after you throughout their generations. This is my covenant between me and you, that you and your offspring after you will keep. Every male among you must get circumcised. You must circumcise the flesh of your foreskins, and it will serve as a sign of the covenant between me and you throughout your generations. Every male among you, 8 days old, must be circumcised. Genesis 17:11. Circumcised. Then the next one's going to be baptized, but that's not till anyone who is born in the house, and anyone who is not one of your offspring, and who is purchased with money from a foreigner. Every man born in your house, and every man purchased with your money must be circumcised, and my covenant in your flesh must serve as a lasting covenant. If any uncircumcised male will not circumcise the flesh of his foreskin, that person must be cut off from his people, and he has broken my covenant. Then God said to Abraham, as for you, your wife Sarah, you must not call her Sarah, because Sarah will become her new name. I will bless her and also give you a son by her. I will bless her, and she will become nations, kings of peoples will come from her. At this, Abram fell face down and began to laugh and to say in his heart, will a man 100 years old have a child born to him? And will Sarah, a woman 90 years old, give birth? So Abraham said to the true God, oh, that Ishmael might live before you. To this God said, your wife Sarah will definitely bear you a son, and you must name him Isaac. And I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant to his offspring after him. But as regards to Ishmael, I have heard you. Look, I will bless him and will make him fruitful and will multiply him very, very much. He will produce 12 chieftains, and I will make him become a great nation. Okay, now this is the deal. So like I'll hear other at church or whatever, I'll hear um, people talk about Ishmael is the bondage thing, this bondage thing. You know, Isaac is separate from the bondage because, Hagar was a slave, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Okay, this is the deal. Okay, so Ishmael is going to be the father of Islam, okay? And Isaac is going to be the father of Jews, okay? So that's what happens. And then Ishmael and Isaac, they grew up together until I think, you know, Isaac was probably 10 or more. I mean, Ishmael was, 10, maybe 12, and then, Isaac was, 8 or 9. Well, they loved each other because they were brothers and they played with each other every day and everything. Well, then Ishmael got took away with his mom and they didn't see each other again. But when Abraham died, they were both there at the funeral when they buried their father. So somehow or another, the Muslims and the Jews, the Israelites, Judea, all the Philistines and the Canaanites and all that, they all came from these people. And they were always fighting and everything since, 5,000, 10,000 years ago, probably. I mean, Genesis is 3,500 years ago. So if they just realize that they're all Abrahamic religions, all their religions started from Abraham. You got Muslim, Jewish, Christianity, and Rastafarianism. They're all Abrahamic religions. So if they would just realize that Isaac and Ishmael loved each other, they were brothers, and they both went to their father's funeral, maybe that could help them understand that they need to, So Abram said to true God, "Oh, that Ishmael might live before you." So you get down to, "I will bless him and make him fruitful and will multiply him very, very much. He will produce 12 chieftains and I will make him become a great nation. However, I will establish my covenant with Isaac, whom Sarah will bear to you at this appointed time next year." When God finished speaking with him, he went up to Abraham. Abraham then took Ishmael his son and all the men born in his house, and everyone had to be purchased with money, every male in the household of Abraham, and he circumcised the flesh of their foreskins on that very day, just as God had told. Just as God had spoken with him. Abraham was 99 years old when he had the flesh of his foreskin circumcised. And Ishmael, his son, was 13 years old when he had the flesh of his foreskin circumcised. Okay, so Ishmael was actually 13 or 14 when Isaac was born. On that very day, Abraham was circumcised, and all his son, and his son Ishmael too. All the men of his household, anyone born in the house, and anyone purchased with money from a foreigner, were also circumcised with them. Afterwards, Jehovah appeared to him among the big trees in the Mamre, while he was sitting at the entrance of the tent during the hottest part of the day. He looked up and saw 3 men standing some distance from him. When he saw them, he ran from the entrance of the tent to meet them. He bowed down to the ground. Then he said, "Jehovah, if I have found favor in your eyes, please do not pass by your servant. Please let a little water be brought and have your feet washed. Then recline under the tree. Seeing that you have come here to your servant, let me bring a piece of bread so that you may refresh yourself. Then you may go on your way." At this, they said, "All right, you may do as you have spoken." So Abraham hurried to the tent to Sarah and said, "Quick, get 3 measures of fine flour, knead the dough, and make loaves of bread." Next, Abraham ran to the herd and chose a tender and good young bull. He gave it to the attendant, who hurried to prepare it. He then took butter and milk and the young bull that he had prepared and set the food before them. Then he stood by them under the tree as they were eating. They said to him, "Where is your wife Sarah?" He replied, "Here in the tent." So one of them continued, "I will surely return to you next year at this time, and look, your, your wife Sarah will have a son." Now Sarah was listening at the tent entrance, which was behind the man. Abram and Sarah were old, being advanced in years. Sarah was past the age of childbearing, so Sarah began to laugh to herself, saying, "After I am worn out and my Lord is old, will I really have this pleasure?" Then Jehovah said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh and say, 'Am I really going to give birth even though I am too old? Is anything too extraordinary for Jehovah? I will return to you next year at this appointed time, and Sarah will have a son." But Sarah denied it, saying, "I did not laugh." For she was afraid at this. He said, "Yes, you did laugh." When the men got up to leave and looked down toward Sodom, Abraham was walking with them to escort them. Jehovah said, "I am keeping hidden from Abraham what I'm going to do." While Abraham is surely going to become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth will be blessed by means of him. For I have come to know him in order that he may command his sons and his household after him to keep Jehovah's way by doing what is right and just, so that Jehovah may bring about what he was promised concerning Abraham. Okay, we're going to stop there. We're going to continue on Genesis 20 from the Holy Bible.